Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are here for another episode of Coffee Talk with Friends. Maybe we might have a little bit of wine because we're going to wind down. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an amazing guest here, and I'm trying something new out. I'm letting the guests introduce themselves. So, I'll let my amazing guest do all the talking right now.
I am Lo. I am the founder and host of Wrestling Winedown. We are a female founded and hosted podcast dedicated to professional wrestling and wine. We've been around for about 3 years now, and we interview people that are inside and outside of the ring and really tell their stories, as well as provide wine education, wine recommendations to tie in that second part of our name.
Okay. Well, you hear it first. We got a lot of stuff we're gonna get to. So first thing, what's your favorite wine?
Oh, honestly, it depends. On what's going on, the mood, the day. Right now, I just tried this. It's gonna sound weird. Peach tea wine. I found it at Albertsons and it was pretty good. So I can't remember the brand off the top of my head, but when I found it, I was like, let me try this one, and it's pretty good.
Where's Albertson at? What's that?
Albertsons is a grocery store. I'm trying to think. It's not Kroger. Um, It's kind of similar to like a Kroger or Smith's.
Mhm.
It's not as bougie as like Whole Foods or like Sprouts. It's just a supermarket.
Oh, is it like a West Coast thing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're East Coast out here. That's why we're time zones and everything. Um, but let's dig in. How did Wrestling Winedown come to be?
So Wrestling Winedown started when I was still in college. One of my friends, she was a journalism major as well. I was on Twitter one day and she tweeted about Raw. And we had known each other before that, had taken the same classes, stuff like that. And she tweeted about Raw. And I was like, "You like wrestling?" And she was like, "Yeah, do you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then we would kind of go back and forth when we saw each other in classes or in passing talking about wrestling, but never really had the idea to do a podcast. And then Haley is her name. She came up with the idea of let's do a podcast. And this was around the time of 2018. And there weren't a lot of women doing wrestling podcasts. It was mostly men, white men, who were doing wrestling podcasts. And I knew that we had to jump in. There's a lot of women that watch professional wrestling and they need that type of representation. They want to hear someone that they can relate to talk about wrestling, and not in a yelling type of manner, but very calm and kind of just state the facts, almost like you're talking to your girlfriends, right?
Mhm.
So she was listening to podcasts. I kind of started diving in, and I knew that we had to tie something else into a wrestling podcast. And she loved beer. I'm not a beer drinker. I don't like beer. So I was like, what about wine? And then I came up with the idea of the name. I still have the text where I was like, Wrestling Winedown in all caps, which obviously wine down is to pay homage to SmackDown. Just took the smack out and put wine in. So that was late 2018. We launched WrestleMania weekend in 2019, and we've just been going since then. Haley has stepped away from the show. She stepped away in late 2020. So now it's just me. I bring in different co-hosts, different guests to interview, and I've just really been having a great time getting to know all of these individuals within our community, whether they're gear makers or other podcasters or YouTubers. It's been such an amazing experience to be able to hear these people's stories and relate to them and learn stuff from them.
Oh, okay. So I thought you wind down meant like chill, like you got a glass of wine, you chilling. I'm winding down. That's what I thought. Just the idea. I know from SmackDown.
Yes. So it was from SmackDown. So I wanted to kind of tie it in, and I just thought, what if we just took smack out and put wine in? And that is the concept of our show. We really want people to kind of just relax and just wind down what they're doing and listen to us, and kind of feel like they're with their friends or they're with their girlfriends, and they're in a comfortable space where they can listen to people, and whether they agree or disagree, it's a calm conversation. You might laugh, you might wonder why we're saying some type of things, but at the end of the day, you're always going to feel comfortable in the space. And that's one of my main priorities with the podcast is, when you come in and you listen or you interact with us on social media, you feel comfortable. You feel like you're talking to your friend, not some podcaster in Las Vegas that you've never met before.
I definitely understand what you're saying. You and Stephanie Hardy have the best voices in podcasts.
Oh,
The most
thank you.
soothing voices in podcasting. Stephanie Hardy, aka Mama Dirt Sheets, has has the most soothing voice, and so do you as well. I've listened to some of your stuff. Keep up the good work, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Very like you said, chill. It's like, oh man, like this is what happened on Raw today, and we're gonna talk about Raw. Oh, who's your favorite wrestler? It's like super
Right.
chill. Unlike
Right. And that was a thing for me when I started, when I was listening and doing my research was like, I always felt like I was being yelled at. I felt like I was always being yelled this information about wrestling. And it was just very like, just argumentative. And it didn't seem like the people were having a good time. It seemed like they were so angry. And I'm like, we just need something calm. Like, we just need to talk about what's going on in a really calm manner and just, something that you can listen to whether you're driving to work or you're going to a wrestling event and you're catching up on what's going on. I feel like it's perfect for really any scenario.
has wrestling always been part of your life?
I started watching when I was like 9 or 10 and watched for a couple years, fell out, and then got back in probably like 6 or 7 years ago. So now it's been definitely constant, but there was a time there where I wasn't really watching it or keeping up with it.
Why did you stop, and what made you restart watching?
I was just a teenager. I felt like just wasn't really interested in it anymore. Like, I wasn't really liking the storylines at the time, even though now I can't even really remember the storylines that were happening. But the reason why I started back watching was I just missed it, and I had started a Twitter and I wanted to find other women who liked wrestling. And this was before the podcast. This was when I decided that I would start watching again. And I think the fact that I was able to find a community of women who enjoy wrestling and can have productive conversations with each other is a reason why I've stayed into it and really, pay attention to stuff now and really gravitate towards different wrestlers or different storylines was because I had that community. And when I was like 9 or 10, obviously I wasn't on Twitter, but I was a young girl. No one else liked wrestling. I wasn't talking about wrestling with people. I had my older cousin, but he's older than I am. Yeah, we could talk about wrestling, but I never had anyone my age or like close to my age that I could really relate to about wrestling because the girls that I knew, they didn't like wrestling and the guys weren't really into it. I don't really remember any guys being like, "Oh, I love wrestling." Like football and basketball, that was pretty much it.
So you're from Vegas?
I am born and raised.
What is it like? So one of my coworkers at my shoot job, he's from Vegas.
Oh, okay.
And I had asked him once, I was like, how's it like being from Vegas? He was like, it's like being from New York. It's like you don't do any of that touristy stuff. The strip is not a big deal to us. Is that true?
It's very true. Most locals stay away from the strip unless they absolutely have to go there. Like, if you have family or friends visiting, you might take them to the strip or downtown Las Vegas. But if you're just like going out for like a Friday or Saturday and you're not going to the club, you're probably not going on the strip. Like, there's always construction, there's traffic, it's so many people. I usually avoid it. I mean, you have like the different cities within Las Vegas, but outside of the strip. So I usually stay in like those communities just to stay away from like all of the different tourists and the traffic and construction. But I mean, like, yeah, your friend is right. Like, Vegas is like New York. Like, you have that area, like the strip, it could kind of be like Times Square. You have that huge tourist attraction kind of like right in the middle of the city. But you have all these other communities that are so rich in history and culture surrounding that area.
That's awesome. So let's dig into like your love for professional wrestling. All right, number one question I gotta ask: favorite wrestlers, past, present. Throw five at me. It doesn't have to be any type of order. Let's talk.
Bianca Belair. I always say this. I wish Bianca Belair was in WWE when I first started watching when I was 9 or 10. I don't think I would have fell out of watching professional wrestling if Bianca Belair was there. When I first started watching, there were not a lot of black women. There weren't any women that really looked like me. We had Crystal, and then kind of close to when I stopped watching, we had Naomi, who was on that season of NXT where they did like a competition instead of how it was, later on, and Alicia Fox. And those were the only black women that I remember. So watching Bianca's journey and seeing her grow as a homegrown talent and the love that people have for her has been really amazing to watch now as a grown woman. But I know that it would have been amazing to watch as a younger girl. So I'll start with her. I have to say John Cena. If it wasn't for John Cena, I would not be watching wrestling. No, not
Really?
John Cena was the first person that I stumbled upon when I found WWE on the Spanish channel. I don't speak Spanish, but I was going through the channels and I saw John Cena on the Spanish channel. I was like, what is this? And just started watching it. And, I could pick up on the storylines, who was feuding, who was the bad guy, who was the good guy. Watched it for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks on the Spanish channel and finally found it on USA and then just went from there. But John
Wait,
Cena has.
hold on. I don't like how you just completely try to pass. Your first interaction with wrestling was on Telemundo.
Yes, and you know what? I recently just found someone who they found it there as well, and I was like, I'm not the only one. Because I've told this story so many times and people are like, "What?" And they'll think it's funny or they're like, "How did you know what was going on?" But I mean, I was just so interested in it and it felt like a story to me. You had these different people involved in these storylines and they're doing these crazy things in the ring and I was just so intrigued. The first WrestleMania I watched was WrestleMania 23 and I still remember everything. I had the disc set. I remember that there was one disc with the whole almost the whole show on and then you had the other disc with John Cena and HBK. That was the only thing on that disc. But I still remember it like it's yesterday. And John Cena just stands out in my mind. I mean, he's done so much within the professional wrestling industry, whether you love him or you hate him. He's done so much and he's made professional wrestling cool again. You have these different icons in history, whether it's The Rock or Stone Cold, who have, put wrestling on the map. And John Cena, for a very long time, was that reason people were watching wrestling. So I have to put him on my list. Wardlow, which I know won't surprise people, but I really liked seeing Wardlow's transition from being a bodyguard to MJF to now being the TNT champion. His growth has been really amazing so far. I know a lot of people online are like, "Oh, it seems like they're kind of downplaying him now ever since he's won the title," but I'm intrigued. I think that he's doing a great job. And if you really paid attention to him with MJF, he really was kind of telling a story on his own. He had those facial expressions, he had those moments. Like his patience is impressive because I would have kicked MJF's ass way sooner than he did. But I just think he's an incredible performer. And I think he's doing really great things in AEW right now. Number 4. I would say Jazz. I think Jazz does not get enough credit within WWE's history. She, was doing amazing things right along with Trish and Lita, but she is not brought up a lot. And I know, there's different things that have happened along the way, and maybe that's why WWE doesn't bring her up. But she is one of the main black women that they had within that time period along with Jacqueline, and I feel like they both don't get the proper respect that they deserve. Jazz is just she's that bitch. Like I would be deathly scared to face her in the ring because she is about her business. But the one thing that really impresses me about her is that she's one of those individuals who has realized that she's gained all this institutional knowledge within the professional wrestling world. And now she's teaching other young people how to do the moves in the ring, how to handle themselves as a professional wrestler. And that has been really impressive to follow her and watch along. Number 5. Huh?
You should have Jazz on your show.
I would love to have Jazz on my show. I met her at Wrestlemania and I told her, I was like, I have a podcast. I'd love to have you on. So hopefully one day.
She'll do it. She'll do it. She did ours. I
Hmm.
mean, top of tiers. She's an amazing person to work with, and Bianca's also really good to work with. So that will happen in due time.
Let's hope so.
Yeah. But that's number 4 we did?
Number 4.
Got one more.
I would have to say Stone Cold. I mean, Stone Cold is just Stone Cold is it. Like, you see the poster in the background. Like, I'm the most wrestling shirts I own are Stone Cold. Like, there is just something about his he just doesn't care attitude and the way that he really ran his shit when he was in the 90s and even now when he comes back. Like, I know the match at WrestleMania some people are not happy with, but
it was fine the way it was. I was totally okay with it. You didn't like it?
Oh no, I liked it, but I saw some of the comments online and people were not. Very true.
That shit was perfectly done the right way, and we all can't forget that Stone Cold's old.
Yes.
So, right. But I'll give you that. I'm a rockhead. True and but gotta respect the bald-headed brother named Stone Cold Steve Austin.
And he does not age. I need his skincare routine.
Oh, top tier. So let's get into the love and hate of professional wrestling for you. Everybody has their love and hate. But first, before I get involved, like go to that part, you've been speaking a lot about being a woman in this, like this field, in this niche market we call professional wrestling, and in this extra niche market which is called podcasting of professional wrestling. How has your journey been? Because some wrestling fans aren't the nicest when it comes to women for some reason. So could you tell me a little bit about your journey in this wrestling world with podcasting?
Thankfully, I cannot really remember the experiences that I've had where they've been bad. Like, I've had a couple instances here and there where I'll have men try and mansplain stuff to me, or they'll say weird things, or, they kind of come across as rude. But, I say this all the time. Just because you interact with someone online or you're behind a screen, like, that doesn't mean you could talk to someone any kind of way. So, when I do get stuff like that, I know a lot of people, they choose to ignore it. Sometimes I do, but there's other times where I will say something. And I feel like it's important for women to really stand up for themselves, because if you don't, these people are going to keep saying the same stuff to you. And they're going to think, oh, well, she didn't say anything before, I'm just going to keep saying it. Thankfully, I've had a lot of very positive experiences. A lot of people have been very kind in the wrestling community to me, and I'm very grateful for that, because I know other people haven't had the same experiences. I really try to be a positive person, whether it's on Twitter or whether I'm doing an interview. I want everyone to have that same experience with me of, professionalism and, having it together and making sure that they're comfortable when they come on my show, or whether they're interacting with me, or whatever the situation is. But like I said, I know there's women out there who, whether they're in the wrestling podcast field or they're in podcasting in general, they get a lot of comments, whether it's negative or it's hateful, and they don't know how to deal with it. But I feel like it's very important for women to just stand up for themselves. A lot of the times it's usually like, oh, you don't know this, or name 5 matches, or whatever the dumb stuff people say. But usually the women know more than the men on some of the things that I've noticed. So I just really feel like people need to respect women, A, altogether, but B, especially in this male-dominated field of professional wrestling.
Do you feel that being a woman, and also a woman of color, that you have to work 3 times as hard in this field?
Of course.
Feel that way?
I mean, the way I look at it is, when I first started watching wrestling and I would look at the backstage interviewers, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a backstage interviewer, and it was all white women. Or you had Crystal Marshall, who, she did a great job, but she was the only Black woman. And seeing that, and even seeing now the platform of WWE and their diversity, like you look at the pre-show panels, they have Kayla. She is a Black woman, but she's the only woman on the panel. And she holds that panel together because a lot of the times it's not that good. And I wish that they would incorporate more women. But I look at these different figures, whether it's in wrestling or sports or in general, Black women have to work harder. And I do feel like that is the same case in this field. I am very proud that there are a lot of women in this field, but I do wish there were more women of color. And I'm not sure why they're not here. And it might be because you do really have to work hard and you really have to be passionate about this to do it. And some people just don't want to do it, and that's fine. But, I wish there were more women in this community that would jump into podcasting or YouTubing. But like I said, there's a lot of people out there who are hateful or negative, and that's just another thing for them to come at is, oh, a Black woman talking about wrestling. And I know that that could scare some women. And like I said, you really have to stand up for yourself. And if you're passionate about something like professional wrestling and podcasting, dive into it, get into it. There are women out there who, I know me, if I see someone coming for a Black woman, I'm right there with them. Like, you're not going to talk to her any kind of way. And I feel like that's what we need in this community. We need that solidarity between women that look like us, men that look like, us, to when we see something like that happening, be like, whoa, don't talk to her like that. But I feel like a lot of the times it's kind of like we're almost like a lone ranger in some instances. And I think that kind of pushes women to be like, okay, you know what? I can't do this anymore.
I need you to link you up with my co-host Janelle of the HR. You guys need to link. Well, she bought your shirt actually.
She did. I've spoken to her a couple times.
Yeah. Could you explain to people what the shirt I'm talking about?
Yes. So
and the significance of it.
Yes. So I have a shirt that's up on our merch store. It's the Black Wrestling Queen shirt.
The link below if you're watching this right now. There's a link in the description.
So I went to Wrestlemania this year, and I wanted a shirt that had all of the Black women that inspired me when I watch wrestling. So Jazz, Jacqueline, Naomi, Bianca, Sasha, Alicia Fox. And I was looking online, and of course there's no shirt that showcases these women that have done amazing things in professional wrestling. And I was like, well, let me just create something. So I put it out there. I put a watermark on it. A lot of people liked it. So I was like, well, I'm making the shirt for myself. Like, let me just kind of put it on the shop and see how it does. And, a lot of people have really loved it. I've seen people wearing it to events and stuff like that. And 25% of all the profits that are made from the shirt go to this organization called Girl Wonder. So they work with young Black girls to get them the resources that they need to further themselves in their future careers. And that was something that was really important to me because, I'm showcasing these Black wrestling queens on the shirts. Why not give back to these young Black queens who may want to be a professional wrestler one day or want to cover wrestling or go into media? So that's kind of why I tied in that Girl Wonder part into it, is because I wanted to give back to young women like myself who might, be trying to figure out what they want to do with their lives, and they just need that extra push, or they need, a donation to get, stuff in their career, etc. So I really love this shirt. We just re-released it about a month ago with different colors, different t-shirt colors, different font colors. So that'll be up for the foreseeable future, and then we'll kind of go from there and see if we want to keep it on the store or put it back on the wind down vault, as I say.
Okay, that's awesome.
Thank you.
So let's talk about what you love and what you hate in this great world of professional wrestling. So I like to start off with something sour. So what are you currently disliking in professional wrestling right now?
I'm going to have to say the internet wrestling community's drama is something that kind of rubs me the wrong way. I feel like, when there's stuff on TV, like there's people that are very positive and then you have people that are kind of in the middle. But I feel like when people are very negative about stuff, it kind of takes away from the experience. And, you
Mm.
know, I feel like a lot of people that I follow nowadays, like, it's been very good, but every once in a while, I see people that are kind of spiteful or hateful. Or they're saying crazy stuff, and people are not, shy about saying, having that dialogue or discourse with them. But I feel like it also ties into, different situations that happen in the wrestling community that kind of go on the timeline, and it's just like a dumpster fire for everyone to see. That's something that I kind of dislike as well, because I feel like there's a lot of issues within our community that could be handled privately by people, but it goes on the timeline and it creates so much more drama and animosity towards, all of our wrestling community. And I feel like it's not productive for us. Like, we all like the same sport, obviously we're not going to agree on a lot of things, but I feel like we should still have that common respect for one another to not, push it beyond that limit. So that's something that I kind of dislike. Now, would this have been maybe a month ago, I might have said the current course of WWE, but I feel like they're kind of slowly but surely turning it around now that Triple H is in charge of creative and Stephanie McMahon is the co-CEO. So I've been eager to watch WWE and really keep up with it.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. So, I love how positive you are, man. That was like the most positive hate one I've heard. Shout outs to you for that. Shout out to the positivity. You should be the fourth member of New Day because you're just positive. Um, what do you love right now in professional wrestling?
I love that there are different superstars within WWE that have been released and they're getting the second chance. Specifically Dakota Kai. I remember when Dakota got released, I thought that I was reading a prank tweet because there were so many back and forth things about her going up to the main roster. And I've really been a fan of her. I felt like her heel turn was one of the best that I've seen in NXT, and she did a great job. They kind of seemed like they were getting lost along the way towards the end of her run in NXT, but what can you do about that? But seeing her get released just really rubbed me the wrong way. And the pop that she got when she came back at SummerSlam through the TV, I wanted to cry, and I usually like don't cry about, wrestling. Like, I might cry, like I cry with Bianca and Sasha, but that was a legendary match. But like, seeing her come back and the love that she received and everyone excited online for her, that made me happy. That made me excited to continue watching. And, I'm excited to see who else they decide to bring back that have been released. I think that, these people's lives were turned upside down, and it's obvious that they love professional wrestling. And for them to get a second chance with this company under new leadership, under new guidance, it's really a breath of fresh air as a fan. And it makes me really eager to continue watching and seeing what their journey is and how the path that they go down goes.
Oh man. So I told you about this. I hope you were thinking about this. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for one of my favorite parts of the show, hot coffee take. What is hot coffee take, Lo? Oh, you know what? You know what? Let's switch it up a little bit because
We can't have hot wine.
No. It's not hot wine. It's not hot wine. It's not hot wine. What is your wine down take of the day? I like the wine. What take are we winding down with? Because it's the last part of the show. So what are we winding down with?
Even though I feel like this take is kind of pushing in, I still feel like there's a lot of people who either say you have to be AEW or you have to be WWE. You cannot like both. My take is you can like both, and you can be respectful when you like both. I think that there is so much going on in professional wrestling right now, whether you're watching Stardom or Impact or Joshi Wrestling or, WWE or AEW. It is okay to be a fan of everything. It's okay to consume everything. But I feel like if you do favor AEW or WWE over WWE, you can be respectful. And I think that's what kind of where people fall off at is when someone does have a different viewpoint from them, they kind of get a little bit sassy with it. And we don't have to get sassy. Like, you can like both, and you can respect people who don't like either, or maybe they like Joshi, maybe they don't watch WWE. But like I've said this whole podcast, you have to be respectful with people, and I think that's what is missing there. Like, if someone does not like the same thing as you, that's fine, but you should respect them as a person and not, you know, get those Twitter fingers moving, saying some rude stuff because they don't like AEW or they don't like WWE. So that is my take. You can like whatever you like, but be respectful.
Oh man, that was a wonderful thing. Man, it was so wholesome. Your parents raised you very well.
Thank you. I'm gonna tell my mother that. Thank you.
What background? Do you speak a second language or anything?
I don't. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but Iridian Fiera of the Rest Friends podcast, she is going to teach me Spanish. So I'm here for it.
Okay. I was like, damn, I wonder if you could be like wholesome in Spanish too, or like French or something, because you're so wholesome in English. Nan, Lo, thank you for taking time out your busy schedule, having a sip of wine when we really didn't, but we had an imaginary sip of wine with each other.
We did.
As we did this, can you let the people know where to find you?
Yes, so Wrestling Winedown is on all of your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever. We also have a YouTube page. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at WWDCAST. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have merch, shop.wrestlingwinedownlv.com. We currently have up the Black Wrestling Queens. We still have our 1-800-WAR Daddy shirt, which is a Wardlow shirt. That one is leaving soon, and it'll be replaced with another Mr. Mayhem shirt. We have Wine 316, which is obviously to showcase Stone Cold Steve Austin. We have our logo, and then we have our Talk Wrestling to Me collection, which it says, if you are not talking about pro wrestling, then don't stop talking. So we have a wide variety of things if you're interested, but thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate it.
Lo, thank you once again for being on this episode of Coffee Talk with Friends. Ladies and gentlemen, this was Lo of the Wrestling Winedown. Peace, everybody.